Welcome to episode 159 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the All the Motorsports You Want edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. A very busy show here this week. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host, the former iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. It's great to be back on the show for another week, and of course, we've got a lot of racing to talk about, and IndyCar and F1 made their 2023 debut, and I think both of those races had some pretty unexpected results, even if the winners in one of those might have been pretty expected. So, yeah, definitely a lot to talk about. And, of course, NASCAR was pretty interesting as well across all three series. So, yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, definitely a lot to go over. Last week was a season opener for IndyCar at St. Petersburg, also the Formula One opener at Bahrain, and NASCAR was at Las Vegas for a triple header. We'll dive into all three of those first before we get into a packed GSP roundup, which saw Formula 2 and Formula 3 open their seasons up Bahrain as well. World Superbikes ran back-to-back weeks there at Mandalika. Indy Next started their season, what was known as Indy Lights, at St. Pete. And then we have three season openers this coming week. The NHRA Gator Nationals. One Anthony Wayne Stewart was running last week at the Baby Gators, and now he's running at the actual Gators in top alcohol drag. So we'll get in a little bit of that. NHRA with the pro and sportsman categories. Extreme E, a lot of driver changes coming into this season and format changes for their races. So a little bit to get into there. And then, of course, Supercars, the Gen 3 Formula debuts at Newcastle this weekend. And then I'd be remiss to miss the Daytona Supercross as well, AMA Supercross, which is more of the same, kind of similar to the season so far, but we will get into that as well prior to making our picks for and previewing Phoenix for Cup and Xfinity. Josh will get into all things sim racing on his sim segment, and then we will close the deal. But first, let us get into the IndyCar Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, which was interesting from the drop of the green flag. There was carnage. There was lots of action and activity. Some activity that I'm sure certain people didn't want to see. Mainly Michael Andretti. That was a very brutal. It was a brutal day for him as a team owner with all the wrecks and stuff that took place. And so, but out of all of that, there was a battle that we have seen previously last May, which saw Pato O'Ward and the eventual winner, Marcus Ericsson, battling for the victory. Pato O'Ward was out front, trying to hold on to the lead after making a great, what was the last restart of the race, and made an error coming to 3 laps to go, coming off of the final hairpin. Supposedly they said it was either vapor lock or he hit James Hinchcliffe was basically on it. He hit his pit road speed limiter, and it basically shut the car down to where he was at 40 miles an hour or whatever it was. And Ericsson passes him and opens the season with a victory, gets his 4th career IndyCar Series win. 3 of them have been on street courses, and it's only the 2nd time that Ganassi's ever won at St. Petersburg. Of course, Scott Dixon yet again falls short, but his teammate wins. He finished in 3rd. The sandwich was Pato O'Ward, very disappointed. And Alexander Rossi, his teammate, goes and finishes 4th to make two Ganassi cars and then 2 McLaren cars to start the season. And then Callum Ilott with an amazing 5th place run for Juncos Hollander, and then Green Rehal from that. So Ilott started 22nd, finished 5th. Ray Hall 20th to 6th. Will Power, the defending series champion, finished 7th after being in the back of the field at one point. There was, let's see, who else here? Alex Palou, former series champion as well. Christian Lundgaard, David Malukas round out the top 10. There were 12 cars on the lead lap. Defending race winner Scott McLaughlin finished 13th, a lap down, after getting into an incident with the guy he was racing with. It was basically him and Romain Grosjean, the pole sitter for this race, that were battling for the victory for the majority of the day. But in the end, a little bit of argy-bargy between the two of them ended up costing McLaughlin a chance at a back-to-back victory, and then Romain Grosjean a chance to win his first career IndyCar race. A lot went on. The top three guys that led the most laps are all frustrated after this race and have to wait basically a month till Texas. But Marcus Ericsson ends up leading 4 laps, and he led the 3 that mattered, the last 3, and those are the 3 that mattered most in the end. Gets a great start to his 2023 campaign with a victory. Was very, Andretti had a lot of pace early in the weekend. They had 2 cars in the Fast 6. Penske did have pace somewhat with Scott McLaughlin. Power was a little bit off. And then Newgarden, surprisingly, wasn't really a factor the whole entire weekend, which was, I didn't see that coming. But Josh, a lot went on. I didn't even get into some of the crazy accidents, like the first lap accident, which saw Benjamin Peterson ARCA drive right through Devlin DeFrancesco and send him into a spin, and a flying spin or whatever. Root beer float head going and triggering the crash, nailing Helio Castro Neves, and then all them other guys got into it. It was the initial start was Felix Rosenqvist and the other McLaren car and Scott Dixon going and wheel banging in that little section in between 1 and 3, turns 2 and 3. And that was a chain reaction that caused the first of many incidents that took place yesterday. There were only 15 or 16 cars running at the end of this race. Kyle Kirkwood took off over the back of Jack Harvey's car, and and Rinus VeeKay was involved in that accident as well. Issues for Colton Herta. He got run over by Will Power. So there was just tons of carnage, tons of action, and the end of the race was also quite interesting as well. But Marcus Ericsson goes out there, the sneaky Swede, does it again, and starts his 2023 campaign with a victory, Josh.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprising result there at the end with Marcus Ericsson, but he was in contention throughout the race. Was up there contending in the top 8 for most of the entire race until the end, when he managed to be in the catbird seat and capitalize on Pato O'Ward's mistake. But so I think from that end, I don't think any of us had Marcus Ericsson picked to win this race. Obviously, I picked O'Ward and you picked McLaughlin, and I think both those were pretty on point, for the most part. Of course, McLaughlin and Grosjean got into it there and caused a lot of drama. But I think O'Ward's definitely a valid pick, but just didn't have the, capacity at the end to be able to finish the race, and ended up making a mistake, hitting the pit road limiter and suddenly slowing down the car to get to lose the race, which I think for O'Ward, that's probably going to look back on that at the end of the season, and depending on how the championship goes for him, if he loses the championship, he might look back and say, "Damn, I really wish we would have gotten that win." That could have been the difference, between a championship and finishing second or even finishing third in the championship. So that's going to be something to look at here as we go forward throughout the rest of the season. But right now, just have to put it behind him and continue on. But Yeah, Ericsson, Indy 500 winner, now goes and kicks off the season with a win. So now he can go into Texas here in a couple weeks and get back to oval racing and maybe pick up back onto his form that we saw at Indianapolis last year. And maybe he starts off kind of like Scott McLaughlin did last year when McLaughlin could have had a chance at winning the first 2 races of the year. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah, I mean, this race was wild from the start, like you said. First lap accident, of course. Rosenquist and Dixon make contact and get into it. And I mean, it was an unfortunate deal there. And then, of course, Ferrucci, I mean, I think really it was just a stack up there. Ferrucci spun out Castro Neves, and then they all kind of made contact. Simon Pagenaud got eliminated in that one as well, along with Jack Harvey, Jack Harvey was in that one, I think, or he's in the other one, and then Ferrucci, of course. But yeah, just a unfortunate first lap accident there. And I think throughout the weekend they had shown through practice and even qualifying, turn 3 was pretty tricky. They just resurfaced the streets in that area, so I think even if that accident didn't happen, we were going to see a lot of things happen in that coming out of that corner, just from the way cars were handling that section of the track throughout the weekend. But I think it was just a chain reaction, that first accident. Can't really, I mean, I'm not going to say, of course you fault Ferrucci there, but I think it was just a huge stack up there, and just a chain reaction accident. And of course Peterson, don't like to see that, but I mean, you can tell in the video he was slammed the brakes at the end, but still got into DeFrancesco and pirouetted him into the air and everything. So yeah, bad look there. Glad that all the drivers got out okay, although Elio had a bit of a limp coming out of the car, and he looked like he was kind of wincing his right wrist. So we'll see in the coming days, like if anything comes out of that, but that might be something to look out for later on. And then, of course, later on in that race, or shortly after, I mean, we saw Rinus VeeKay and then Jack Harvey in that accident, and Kirkwood get into it as well. And then, of course, Kirkwood, I mean, he had a good run in that race too. He was up there in the top 5, and then I think he just got behind. And then, of course, that accident happens, and he goes over the top of Harvey and VeeKay there. So that, I mean, those two accidents there, you have a car leaving the track going into the air, not normally a thing you see at a street race, but of course, open wheel design, there's always certainly a possibility that a car could project over another car, with wheels touching and everything. So it could happen, but definitely not like something that you want to see at a race, regardless. And of course, Kirkwood, I mean, that's a pretty heavy impact going on landing and like that, and destroyed the front suspension and front wing on that car. And unlike Marcus Ericsson a couple years ago at Nashville, just didn't have the handling after that to really continue on. Of course, had too much damage there. So of course, not what you want to see, but that was of course another dramatic scene. And I think most dramatically, the accident that I think defined the race was the accident between McLaughlin and Grosjean, fighting for the win after their pit sequence, lap 72. And I think that was just a case of two guys trying to go for the win and not showing a lot of patience, and not giving each other a lot of room, even with still a little bit of time left in that race. Of course, I think they knew whoever got out in front would probably likely win, and Grosjean just barely got behind, or McLaughlin got barely in front of Grosjean there, going into the after the pit stop exit, going into the turn 5, 6, and 7 section of that track, turn 4, and just both of them going for the same spot really, and they both got into the tires. So yeah, just a unfortunate sequence of events there, and both of them get into it. And I mean, McLaughlin is able to continue on there. Grosjean eliminated from the race. And I think for Roman, I think he probably could have backed out of it instead of like trying to maintain the outside, because I think that section there is really hard for two cars to go side by side in that corner. And so I think just from that section alone, you probably could have backed out of it and gotten behind him, and maybe tried something, after getting through, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and trying to go for something down turn 10 while McLaughlin's still trying to warm up the tires. I think maybe that was the opportunity there, but of course, you see the opportunity to get out in front of him. You got to take it and hope for the best. And fortunately, or unfortunately for Roman, he just ran out of racetrack, and they both got into the wall. So, I mean, that was pretty dramatic there. And first race of the year already, you see two leaders crashing out on, fighting for the win. It's pretty exciting, I guess, from the entertainment value of it. So definitely a race where a lot of things happened during the event. And I think, for the entertainment standpoint, if you're attending the race or watching on TV, I think that's definitely something, for IndyCar, as far as, trying to get attention. They're building up marketing for this, and they've got the documentary going on leading up into the 500, and, trying to kind of compete with Formula One. I think, this was the type of race that they probably needed in terms of that. You had all of that. Of course, the late, mistake with O'Ward. I think that also for, the entertainment value also brings attention there. So you definitely had a lot of that this weekend. And I think, throughout the course of the season, I think we'll see a lot of competitiveness, and just, from the amount of things that happen in this race, I think we could see later on this season. So yeah, definitely a lot of things happen in this race, but, I definitely did not think that it would happen like that here at St. Petersburg.
Yeah, definitely a lot of action this weekend, a lot of wrecks, even prior to the race itself. 2 wrecks by, you mentioned Kirkwood in qualifying, and then Scotty also. And
Newgarden too.
Newgarden had issues. Pagenaud had issues in qualifying. Peterson wrecked in practice. There is a lot of action, not a lot of grip. The new green, renewable tire that they have, I can't pronounce the name of it, and I'm not really going to try, at least for a few weeks. It didn't seem to have, I guess that was what brought Will Power back into the race, but it really wasn't something a lot of people were using for a long period of time. So we will see how that all goes, and some of the things that will come from this race. There's already stories out about the amount of carnage and how much it costs for these teams. You look at the likes of Andretti Autosport, Meyer Shank, Foyt, after that, some of these others were like one car. Andretti Autosport really got annihilated because Herta, Grosjean, Francesco all knocked out, and then and Kirkwood also Kirkwood took an airborne ride there too. So just a crazy race. But the unfortunate byproduct of all that is we have to wait a month until the next one. I think that we have to look at the rival, a little bit of a rivalry, albeit I don't think there is one in terms of like aggro between drivers, but now Pato O'Ward has lost 2 races to Marcus Ericsson, and in both of those cases he thought he had a chance to win those, and he feels like one got away, I'm sure. You have Scott Dixon up there just sneakily doing Scott Dixon things while the Penske's struggled. He didn't qualify bad either. He qualified ahead of Will Power. So he had a top 10. He made the Firestone Fast 12, which I think they mentioned during the weekend that they were focused on improving qualifying, and looks like it did work, because even their rookie teammate Marcus Armstrong was just outside of the Fast 12. And then I'm trying to think of, and Alex Palou. Yeah, they were 4th, 8th, 9th, and 13th. So good job by them. And I would say credit to Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan. considering how bad the weekend started for them. Lundgaard did make the Fast 12. Ray Hall was nowhere, but was able to make something out of it in the race. Callum Ilott showing the talent and ability that had him as a Formula One test and reserve driver at one point, but wasn't ever going to really advance. Now he's in an IndyCar, and I would think that for teams that have openings, the likes of Ganassi or whoever, I'm because we assume that Palou is going to go to McLaren. I think Ilott is somebody people are going to look at, along with Rinus VK and a couple other people. But credit to his teammate, Agustin Canapino, 33-year-old rookie touring car driver for many years of his career, and now jumping in an open-wheel car. Kept it clean, kept it simple, and gets a finish. I mean, that's all you can really ask for. He did a great job this weekend. Really just kept his nose, he just did what he had to do, kept his nose out of the real bad stuff and got something out of it. Andretti Autosport, we mentioned earlier, they have a lot of speed. There's a lot of potential with that team. Now it's going to come with a lot of volatility as well, but there is a wide berth. It could be they could come back to being the Andretti Autosport of yesteryear when they won a lot, or it's just going to be a lot more bills for Michael Andretti to pay because they wrecked a lot of race cars. We'll get more into it as they come back for Texas here in a few weeks' time, but I think it's disappointing that they won't be running for so long, but that's IndyCar for you. I'll get into Bahrain and the Grand Prix of Bahrain, which saw Fish Lips win again, which is absolutely shocking to nobody. I think we both picked him, and that was, I think, his 30-something win of his career or some crap. So that was, I'm curious. I'll just go and do it this way. So I'm going to go this way and do it. And then Verstappen took off with ease, and he from what is it? He was on pole in qualifying. They'd kind of been quiet during the day or during the weekend and just were sneaking up on it. And then in qualifying, party mode came out, and he qualified. He was like 3-4 tenths up on the rest of the field. That wasn't his teammate, Sergio Perez. Perez kind of got eaten up in the initial start. We saw the likes of Charles Leclerc up there. You saw the Mercedes up there, but I think the bigger story of the entire weekend was one Fred Alonso in an Aston Martin and his teammate Lance Stroll. Stroll I don't think is 100%, but he still was able to get in the third round of qualifying and then get a points finish. But Fernando Alonso went out there, didn't have the greatest start, or else we could have probably seen him in a position to finish second in this Bahrain Grand Prix. So that's something to say the least. I mean, 36 career win and 21 poles and 21 fastest laps. So he's moving up that wins chart in for all time. I mean, right now his next target is Ayrton Senna, which there's a chance this year if he goes and puts on another 15, he could, if he wins another 15 races this year like he did last year, which if you ask George Russell, it's already out there on racer.com that he says that the championship's already over. He would be right at 50 wins. So he needs 17. Well, what is it? He started this year with 35 victories. So he would need 18 victories this year to tie Sebastian Vettel and then be tied for third all time. I think based on what he showed yesterday, I would venture to say that there's a better likelihood of that happening than some other things happening. It was Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, and Lewis Hamilton finishing fifth. Perez was behind. The margin victory was just under 12 seconds. Alonso third, 38.6 seconds, Sainz 48 seconds, and Lewis Hamilton nearly 51 seconds behind. Lance Stroll, George Russell, the top 7. Valtteri Bottas, Pierre Gasly, and Alex Albon for Williams gets a point. Yuki Tsunoda, the last car on the lead lap. Logan Sargent was 1 lap down. I think that happened late in the race, but he made a great start and was fighting with different drivers and looked the part. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But I mean, we said that Verstappen was going to win. The ease by which he did it is probably a very bad sign for everybody else on the grid, unless you are Fernando Alonso there, Josh.
I mean, yeah, it's already for Red Bull dominating performance to start off the year. So, credit to Red Bull for putting out a good race car and compared to everybody else. And Verstappen just continues to dominate, picking up right off where he left off last year. And so we'll see how it goes for him continuing on later in the season. And of course, Perez had to do a little bit of work, so it wasn't completely a perfect day for him. But yeah, at the end of the day, he ends up in second behind his teammates. So 1-2 for Red Bull, and yeah, they start off about as perfectly from a results standpoint as you can. So there's that. And then I think, of course, I think the big surprise, big story, of course, Alonso finishing on the podium, which, obviously, we didn't expect that to happen. Obviously, with our picks, we picked Russell and Hamilton to finish in third in this race, and we also picked Charles Leclerc to be in second, which, for a while, Ferrari and Carlos Sainz, they were up there for a bit, but they obviously, with Charles Leclerc continuing the failure, the issues that he had from last year with the motor, something continues to happen to him. So already off to a bad start in terms of misfortune for Leclerc, and then Carlos Sainz faltered, towards the end of the race after the safety car for his teammate, and ended up getting eaten alive by Fernando Alonso towards the end of the race. But yeah, the Aston Martins, they've had a lot of speed as of late, and we've been talking about them in the lead up to this first Grand Prix, and they had a lot of pace and testing, and then of course Stroll had his cycling accident and had his injuries and everything, so there's the question of whether he'd even be able to compete, and he answered those questions by doing well in qualifying, and then going out and getting a 6th place finish, and finishing ahead of one of the Mercedes. So yeah, pretty good result for him to start the year. And then of course Alonso looking kind of like the Alonso of old, going out and fighting and having a good car, fighting Lewis Hamilton for position, and making. It took him a couple laps to officially get around him, but of course, he managed to get around and have a good run on the outside of Hamilton, and he goes out and passes Carlos Sainz as well. And so yeah, that was a pretty impressive run there for Alonso. And so I think now my question is for Aston Martin is, can they keep that pace going forward in this season, or is this just a one-time result? I think at least for now, I think you can see them the next couple of races, they can definitely be competitive. But I think going forward into next, they'll be at Saudi Arabia, and then they'll be at Melbourne, so in the Australian Grand Prix. First couple of races, as teams still kind of work things out and figure things out. Can they keep that momentum and maintain their ability to finish in the top half of the points, get a podium here or there? I think that's now a goal for Aston Martin, and I think Alonso, I think he's going to be able to do that, and so I think we're going to see a lot of that here early on in the season. So yeah, pretty impressive. Of course, he was voted as driver of the day on F1 Twitter, so, and I think he deserved it too. He was obviously the putting on a show, and which probably wouldn't have been anything else if if he didn't do that, then obviously the only thing we'd be talking about is Verstappen and the Ferrari woes that they had. So, credit to Alonso for being able to do that and making it entertaining. So, and he actually gets his 99th podium. So now he has to try and get his 100th podium here coming up, which is obviously it's a lot of podiums and pretty impressive numbers. So. Alonso looking more like a 21-year-old instead of a 41-year-old driver. So we'll see if he's able to continue that there. And then, of course, going back to Ferrari, continue the struggles that they had last year, really, when you look at the results of it. And got to wonder what they need to do to give Leclerc a reliable car. Otherwise, it's going to be a same exact repeat of last year in this race. And then Carlos Sainz couldn't really hold off Alonso there at the end. So, I think they got to go back a little bit, back to where before they started the race and, see how they can finish races. And, of course, Leclerc, he's supposed to be their top guy. And, he's up there for a lot of the race, of course, but, didn't finish the race having an engine issue. So definitely they need to go back and make sure that they give him a reliable engine, give him a reliable car. Otherwise, be a struggle here this season for Ferrari, which is what they don't want to see after what they went through last year and the last couple of years. And they've kind of changed their leadership, their management, their team principle. So definitely want to see them improve. But for now, it's definitely a struggle. And I think Mercedes, obviously, they're slow right now. Hamilton was the better of the two between him and Russell, and Hamilton for a moment there. He was fighting off Alonso, but Alonso managed to find a way around him, like I said earlier. So, they've been slow, and then Russell wasn't able to really battle against Lance Stroll there throughout the race. So, they definitely have a lot to improve, I think, and obviously Lewis. I mentioned that they still have a lot of work to do, and already George Russell, like you said earlier, is already conceding, which I don't think you want to see that starting out the year. Obviously we know it's tough to win and everything, but I can't. I feel like you admit that publicly that it's already going to be a struggle with Red Bull having already won the championship like that first race of the year. Maybe that's not the type of mentality to have. Certainly more positive looking outlook. It might be realistic, but I feel like you as a driver and as a team, you want to be able to believe in yourselves, I guess, and be able to improve upon the results. So, Russell, solid driver so far in his career, and I think he can continue to improve and be more consistent. But I think they still have a lot of work to do in terms of speed for Mercedes, and I think it shows this weekend just how much work they still have to do in terms of pace. And obviously they had the issues last year with the porpoising, and that's maybe not an issue now, but now they have to fix the speed. So Toto Wolff got a lot of work cut out for him to be able to give his two guys a better race car that they can go out and at least compete more consistently for podiums and even wins if they're able to ever get to Red Bull's level this year. So we'll see. So I think this weekend, solid Grand Prix in terms of Alonso and Ferrari drama, but otherwise, it's nothing really that took place other than Verstappen going out and spanking the field.
Yeah, and it was basically expected, but then seeing it happen kind of just stinks. But unless you're part of that army of his, and then I went to the gym. He was already up 7 seconds. I think it was 11 laps into the race, and he was 7.5 seconds ahead. I'm like, all right, so I didn't miss anything. And then I got back in the car, and the race is over. So Alonso all happy and stuff, and of course with his buddy there, Verstappen on the podium. I'm curious what'll happen if those two actually get into a head-to-head battle. What might happen there? That might be something. Leclerc blowing an engine, having to replace 2 power unit pieces prior to the race that are very limited, and then having that engine failure is a very bad sign. While running up front too, McLaren finished with the last finisher and Lando Norris 2 laps down and Oscar Piastri retiring 13 laps into the race. So a complete nightmare scenario for them. Esteban Ocon had about 800 penalties yesterday. And it was a bad weekend in general for Alpine, considering, Ocon was ninth, and in the end, Gasly swapped with him. Gasly ended up starting dead last. And they essentially swap spots. Like I mentioned about Logan Sargent, he almost got in a Q2. Albon did get in a Q2, didn't bother to run. But I think for Williams, they're going to pick their spots here this year. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for Logan Sargent to score a point this year. I think it is entirely possible. He's a much better driver than Nicholas Latifi. I also believe that, they made incremental improvements to the car, albeit it's the worst car on the grid. But potential is there. It's good to see. We'll see what he can do at Saudi here in a couple of weeks' time. You just want to see him continue to learn. The rookie battle looks a lot more wide open than I thought it was going to be, because the AlphaTauri is not very good either. And of course, with Oscar Piastri, the McLaren team, if there's one team that's as bad off with their whatever targets that they're trying to hit, other than Mercedes, it's McLaren. And then, Ferrari's Ferrari, of course. And Ferrari, Mercedes probably are the two worst cars on tires. So then when they're running at rougher racetracks, then they're going to be at a disadvantage to the Red Bull and Aston Martin, which if we start looking at them closely, I'm going to assume they just copied the Red Bull, that's what Stroll F1 always seems to do. So I'll give credit to Sebastian Vettel, because I think he had some bits and pieces to do with this, and I think it would have been pretty cool to see Vettel in this car doing work, going and trying to beat his old team, but instead he's in retirement now. So I mentioned all the points. That was in qualifying. Hulkenberg started 10th, but dropped like an anchor. The Constructors Championship right now, standings, sees Red Bull up by 20 points on Aston Martin. Aston Martin is 7 points ahead of Mercedes and 11 ahead of Ferrari. Alfa Romeo, Alpine, and Williams, 4, 2, and 1 points respectively. AlphaTauri, Haas, and McLaren are 8th through 10th. None of them, of course, scored this past weekend, but they will have a chance to do so in Saudi Arabia in 2 weeks' time. Let's see. Let's go to Cup. We're getting in NASCAR now, and that is Wheat Toast, William Byron, Cardboard Box, William Byron going and dominating in what worked out to be a Hendrick Motorsports 1 through 3. That was pretty hard to watch yesterday in general in the Pennzoil 400. But I think the bigger story, I guess we should lead with this. They did finish 1, 2, 3, but the one guy that was missing is the most popular driver in the sport, William Clyde Elliott II. He got hurt snowboarding, broke his leg. We don't know how long he's going to be out. When you started hearing all the news trickling out there, Josh, that it started, I just kept on going back to Kyle Busch. And he missed, I think, 3 or 4 months or something. He missed 13 races or something like that. He missed 13 races, got a waiver, won a couple times or whatever it was in the regular season, got himself into the playoff, no problem. And then went on to win the 2015 championship. I have to go and look back on who he was running against in that 2015 championship. I'm not sure if that was the
running
Edwards,
against
Logano.
He was running against Logano, Jeff Gordon, and Truex.
Okay, all right. So Jeff Gordon, that was his final race of his full-time Cup career. Martin Truex, that was the first year at the second year at Furniture Row. That was his first year with Cole Pern. But they didn't really have a lot of pace by that point of the season. It was basically Kyle Busch versus Logano, and Kyle Busch had more.
I have that one wrong because Logano got eliminated.
Oh, he got eliminated by Matt Kenseth. That's
no, it
right.
was Harvick and Gordon and Truex and Busch. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it was basically Harvick versus Kyle Busch in that spot. Jeff Gordon kind of really wasn't a main factor. And, yeah, Kyle Busch had the pace, so he won that race, and he won his first career championship. But I kind of feel like that's a similar way this is going to go, as long as he can recover to a similar extent, or that the injuries aren't as bad or at a similar level to what Kyle Busch suffered back, 8 years ago at Daytona in a Xfinity wreck. But we don't know. I'm not sure. He did have surgery. We'll see what happens. The Josh Berry had multiple issues with his car yesterday and finished 29th, but I think he did about as well as he could have given the circumstances, given the lack of time he's really spent in a Gen 7 car. Hopefully he gets another shot. I'm personally of the people that want to see him run more races and let him run at tracks that he's very good at, like Martinsville or Bristol or Richmond or whatever, like run smaller tracks, flatter track. Let him run this weekend. Why not? Hendrick's good at Phoenix. He got in the Final Four. I think it would be a good opportunity to let him run another race here. I don't know who they're going to find that's going to be better, really, than Josh Berry. Who are you going to get? Some guy that's been out of the seat for a while that used to drive Cup and then put him in the 9 car? I saw, forgetting on Toby Christie, one of his guys went and put out Corey LaJoie. Now, I will say that Corey LaJoie has started this season better than he's ever started any other season of his career. They've weighted a lot of their energies towards that 7 car, and it seems like for the first time in their entire existence, what's his team's name again?
Spire.
Spire. That's the first time I think. So yeah, thank you. Spire. That's the first time I think Spire's actually tried to be competitive, and for that, I guess they deserve an attaboy, but I really don't think they deserve one when you run the 77 car and it has engine issues every week, and it's a piece of shit car. And I got into it with some people on Twitter, people who are Rick Ware zealots, who knew that they had zealots. Spire, and then I was talking about the 78 car. Those 4 cars shouldn't have charters. They run in the back every week, virtually every week. I'm not mistaken in what the original charter said. One of the stipulations was if you run in the back 3 years in a row, you're one of the last 3 for 3 years in a row, you lose your charter. And if you want me to believe that Rick Ware's cars have not been in the back for 3 years in a row, or that 78 hasn't been there for 3 years in a row, the only way that and the Spire car, forget it. That's nonsensical. I think the 77 got saved under the pretense that they had won that race, but I think those points were swapped over to the 7 car. And I think last year of full-time drivers, Corey LaJoie was one of 2. Him and Cody Ware were the only 2 that finished outside of the top 30. So how the hell did those cars not, then the 77 finished behind that because they had a mix of drivers, and the 15 finished behind that. The 78 didn't have a set list of drivers, so whatever. I don't know. It's a tangent on freaking. I don't hate Corey LaJoie, but I don't like the team he drives for. But we'll see what happens. I guess before we move on to the race itself, Josh, what were your thoughts when you heard about Clyde getting hurt and what I guess will be the possibilities? Do you have any ideas of who else it could be other than an Xfinity guy off of Junior Motorsports?
You talked about 2 of the guys that could be in that car, and Josh Berry, I think, he deserves to have that opportunity, and he deserves to show what he can do in a Cup car. He's obviously got a lot of talent, and we're finally seeing him be able to drive in a good Cup or Xfinity ride with Junior Motorsports. And so far, the time that he's been in that car, he's shown that he deserves to compete in that series. And I think he's also shown that he deserves to be in a Cup ride. So now he's in a good Cup ride, potentially. Well, we don't know yet, but he's had the opportunity to run in a good Cup ride, and I think it's just a matter of getting adjusted to the different driving style that Gen 7 has compared to the Xfinity car. So there's a little bit of a learning curve there that he's going to have to go through. But yeah, at the end of the day, he was, he felt fairly comfortable after the second stage, but they just had some issues with the throttle body, I think, throughout the race, and they couldn't really have as much pace as what they wanted. So, yeah, I mean, Barry, I think he deserves it also, but then on the flip side, you mentioned Corey LaJoie, and I mean, he's infamously known for writing a letter to Rick Hendrick saying that he should be the replacement to Jimmy Johnson a couple of years ago when Johnson announced that he was going to retire. And of course, Rick Hendrick didn't pick him, but I mean, of course, the thought is still there, and Corey has been in the Cup Series for a few years, and he has more Cup experience than Josh Berry. So if you want to go for more Cup experience to potentially still keep the 9 afloat in the owners' standings or something like that, then maybe you call Corey LaJoie and put him in the 9 car, and then maybe work out a deal and put Berry in the 7 car, and to still get him Cup experience. But we'll see what happens. And I think another theory behind putting Barry in there is him and Elliott are both of similar build, versus somebody like Allgaier who's a lot more shorter in the car, so they don't really have to do as much work putting in a different type of seat mold for Barry versus Justin Allgaier. So yeah, I think that's maybe why they went with Josh Berry there to replace Elliott. So definitely unfortunate for Chase Elliott, and a lot of people are criticizing him for doing snowboarding in the middle of the season, and I mean, I can't really fault him for that because he's doing something in his off time, and I mean, he flies to the races and flies from Dawsonville into Charlotte. I mean, do you want him to live in Charlotte and still, I mean, he can still have an accident or something like that? So there's still the potential. I mean, obviously he's a licensed pilot and knows, he has a good knowledge, but I mean, there's always the chance that something could happen there. So, yeah, it's hard to criticize him on being a snowboarder or trying to do snowboarding. And I mean, a lot of the other drivers have their own activities. I mean, Jimmy Johnson at the end of his career was actually living and I don't know if he still is, but I mean, he was living in Aspen, Colorado, and going skiing on the weeks between races. And I mean, he frequently posted on Instagram and other things what he was doing in Aspen the last maybe 2 years of his career, and can't really fault Elliott for wanting to go snowboarding while he's out in the West Coast where there's a lot of good places to do that activity and try to get your mind right in between races. So can't really fault him there for that. And I mean, Larson also, I mean, he races a bunch outside the Cup Series and on dirt, and we've seen the type of things that can happen in dirt racing in the off season and during the season where you have some nasty accidents and something there could happen. So Larson, of course, has been able to do this for many years. I mean, we've seen Tony get hurt a couple of times racing sprint cars in this season, and he fractured his tibia a couple years ago, remember, in 2013, and then ended up being out of the car for the whole rest of the 2013 season. And then remember in the off season of his final year leading up to it, had that back injury in the desert with the dune buggy and everything. So if you're a person criticizing him, I think it's a lot of the older crowd really, but it's when you look at other drivers that have happened to him, I mean, it's hard to criticize him for what happened there. So it's just a unfortunate thing that happened, I guess, and you just have to deal with it, I guess. But I mean, my reaction to that is just kind of shocked, I guess, that happened, and just like you don't expect to see that. But I mean, you talked about Kyle Busch, what he did in 2015, and could easily be the same situation. But and it's almost we've only had 2 races. Before that incident, there was only 2 races, so it's still pretty early. So we could still see Chase Elliott come back in the car by the Coca-Cola 600 if he's able to heal quickly enough, or by Nashville or whenever the NBC contract takes over for Fox. Potentially we could see Chase Elliott there, and that's probably a storyline. Like if it ends up lining up like that, then NBC is going to promote the hell of that, of Chase Elliott making his return to the Cup Series as their lead into their first race on the broadcast. So that could happen there too, which I just thought of. And you have that. And then, of course, it depends on the injury itself, because, Chase, if he has a fracture in the tibia, right, then he'll be able to heal, and he's already had the surgery. But, of course, like Kyle Busch talked about it, and he'll get advice from him from that. But, if it was like a ligament, an area like near the ligament or something like that, or a joint, then that might be a little bit harder, and maybe he's out for a longer time. But it seems like, there hasn't been any issues so far, from the surgery. So we'll just have to matter of time, wait and see when Chase Elliott gets back into the car. But it's an unfortunate deal, but it could lead to good opportunity for Josh Berry most likely, or maybe even Corey LaJoie. But we'll see what happens. And I don't think it's going to be like a Kyle Busch coming back and winning the title type of thing. I think the series is a little bit more volatile, and it's a lot more unpredictable than it was in 2015 in terms of driving. So I think it's going to be a little bit tougher hill to climb for Chase Elliott in terms of being able to. I think he'll still probably make the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as what Kyle Busch was able to do in 2015 to get to the championship.
Yeah, I can see that, and it's definitely valid. It really is. In terms of who they're going to get to drive, there's a very limited group that really could do it. So I guess we will see. We have a few days before Phoenix. I'm sure they want to get that decision out there because they want to have the seat and everything in the car before they go and ship the truck out to Phoenix itself. So that is one thing right there. Okay. Yeah. So, I'll go to the results here of the Pennzoil 400. William Byron wins, led 176 laps and won both stages. Kyle Larson finished second, was leading going into the final pit stop, lost the lead off pit road to Byron. Alex Bowman finished third. Basically, Byron and Larson dominated the entire race. Logano led the first 9 laps and then ceased to exist. The Fords were basically in no man's land the whole entire day. It was a Chevy, and then we're getting to Bubba Wallace gets his first top 5 of 2023. Christopher Bell finishes 5th. Austin Cindric, the leading Ford, in 6th. Martin Truex Jr. stays out on old tires trying to go for the Hail Mary. Didn't come off, but finishes in the top 10 anyway. Justin Haley with a top 10 finish. Credit to him. And Kaulig Racing started 27th. Harvick 9th, and Daniel Suarez in 10th. Hamlin led laps, was 11th. Ross Chastain maintains his points lead, regular season points lead. He's only 3 points ahead of Alex Bowman. So that's an interesting battle there early in the season. Blaney started 3rd, finished 13th. Kyle Busch 14th. Tyler Reddick gets a top 15 finish, gets a little bit of luck. He's been lacking that so far in this season. I mentioned the Fords were really bad off outside of the Penske's, which, Logano had his issues, wrecked the car, but the 2 Penske cars were, 6th and 13th. And Harvick was the only Stewart-Haas car of any significance, because after that, Almirola was 16th, and where we had Priest finished 23rd, and Chase Briscoe was 28th, 2 laps down. The only things that saved him were Josh Berry's mechanical issues, Noah Gragson, and Todd Gilliland, and then the usual bottom 4. That car was absolute dog shit from the moment they took it off the truck, and it ran just like that the whole entire weekend. We're coming off of a car and a team that in September in the playoff race, or October, whenever the hell it was, they were up front on the last restart with a chance to win and got passed for the win by Joey Logano, fell back, but still finished in the top 10. So where the hell did those notes go? What the heck happened between then and now? Did they change a tire? Was it because it was colder? Because it was really cold and looked miserable there. But, I mean, how the hell can you be that far off? And that's been the case this whole entire season so far. It's already been 3 weeks. But, I mean, Daytona, they were okay. They had a fast car for one lap, and they gave themselves a chance, put themselves in position possibly to get a good run, but then the wrecking happened. And now they look like dog crap the last 2 weeks, and now they're having to defend the first win from a year ago at Phoenix. Something good has to come off. You know, you look at Tyler Reddick, he's another one that really needs something good to happen. And then I remember Ross Chastain. They were all up front there on the final restart of the race last March. And a lot's changed for all of them since then, but in 2 of their cases, they definitely need to get a good run out of it. Chastain finished 12th, or whatever they mentioned. Keselowski led laps, finished 17th. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, it's now 3 different winners so far in 3 races, all Chevys so far to start 2023. I mentioned the points. Chastain over Bowman. Harvick is 3rd, Daniel Suarez is 4th, and Martin Truex is 5th. So those guys are all separated by a total of 6 points. Hamlin's 6th. Christopher Bell gains 8 spots. Truex was 6 spots. Bell 8 to 7th. Kyle Busch, of course, has a win. So he's locked in. He's in 8th. Logano 9th. Chris Buescher 10th. Brad Keselowski in 12th. Richard in 11th, and Richard in 12th. Byron with his win, he's in 13th. Goes up 16 spots with his victory. Kyle Larson up 10 to 14th. Ryan Blaney loses 3 spots this week. Logano lost 7 spots. It's early volatility, of course. And Bubba Wallace is tied with Austin Cindric with Gumby and for the playoff bubble. And we mentioned Corey LaJoie earlier. He's 18th in points. Fitting that whole narrative about Spire actually giving him a good piece. Slide lost 10 spots in points by missing the race, but you have quite an interesting list of drivers there. The likes of Austin Dillon, who won last year. You have Eric Jones, who won last year, and for now Legacy Motor Club. You have the 2 Stewart-Haas guys in Preece and Briscoe, outside of the top 30 in points, along with Tyler Reddick, who is still behind or tied with Travis Pastrana, who only ran the Daytona 500. So, that's pretty terrible. I gotta say, that's pretty terrible. Okay. Xfinity, there was a little bit more stuff that went on there in that Alsco Uniforms 300 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Austin Hill came through, and he won the second stage, but was able to sneak the lead away there, come into the white flag from Chandler Smith, get his second win of 2023. Justin Allgaier second. Chandler Smith started from pole, finished 3rd. Kyle Busch 4th, giving 2 Kaulig cars in the top 5, along with 2 Junior Motorsports cars with Josh Berry. John Hunter Nemechek, coming off of his victory at California, finished 6th, won a stage, so getting another stage point or playoff point. Then you have Sam Mayer, Riley Herbst, Sheldon Creed, and Daniel Hemrick rounding out the top 10. Parker Kligerman and Cole Custer rounded out all the lead lap cars, so 12 cars finished on the lead lap on Saturday afternoon. I mean, outside of the top 7, top 7, there was only one other driver that led a lap, and that was Anthony Alfredo, and he finished 19th. You know, there was all but one car finished the race. Gase had a fuel pump issue, but then wouldn't be surprised that way. Patrick Emmerling took over for C.J. McLaughlin after C.J. McLaughlin crashed, which is not surprising. So he got replaced in that car. I see some other people there. I think Rajah Cruz spun out at some point during that race on Saturday at 48, number 845. Yeah, he spun out, and that led to the conclusion of the second stage, and that was the last yellow of the race. So that was interesting there. I mean, Austin Hill giving himself his first restrictor plate type race victory of his Xfinity career. good momentum so far for him, moving into what likely will be, I think his next stage is going to Cup. Now, where will that be is a great question considering the current circumstances. But if you're going to run as good as he has so far this year, I would think Austin Hill's next path is the Cup Series. But to be determined. A good start to the year, though, 2 out of 3 to start the season.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad for Chandler or for Austin Hill, and he's done pretty well this year. And kind of didn't expect him to be that competitive on a 1.5-mile track with his track record so far in Xfinity. But in Truck Series, he was pretty good on the 1.5 miles, and this was a type of track that he succeeded pretty well in that series. And he's been pretty good on 1.5 miles in his truck career so far. So it may be from that perspective not too surprising that he was able to pick up the win here. But I think for Xfinity, kind of contrast to Cup. I mean, the Cup Series, like that race, obviously there is still a lot of comers and goers in that race, but that one had, you could tell that they were on rails to a degree. And this race, you could tell there's a little bit more handling, even for the drivers out in front for the leader. It wasn't as guaranteed that you could maintain the lead and hold throughout a run, or at least off of a restart. And we saw a couple of times where the leader couldn't quite drive away. And I think just the downforce differences in this series, I think really played a factor. And I think with the end of the day, Austin Hill was able to maintain his lap times throughout the end of the last run, and Chandler Smith, it looked like he might have the win, but then I think just ran out of tire, ran out of car at the end of the race, and I think that's why Austin Hill was able to reel him back in and make the pass at the end, and he was able to kind of use the air downforce and use his handling to his advantage, and he was able to go out and get the win with the last couple of laps in the race. And I think he's a very patient driver, and someone who he's been able to prove it on the plate tracks in Atlanta, but we hadn't seen him win or really be that competitive on a non-super speedway track. And I think this race proves he can run up front like that and pick up wins. So this is a big win for him in terms of that. And I think, could he be in a Cup car with RCR? It's certainly possible. And so I definitely think that's in the play within the next couple of years. And depending on, I think Sheldon Creed also deserves to be in a Cup car at some point. I think he's really talented. So I think both of those guys could end up going to, if it's not RCR, then somewhere else in the Cup Series that has an opening, if Austin Dillon somehow stays in the Cup Series after the next couple of years. So we'll see what they're able to do. But I thought this was a lot better race, I think, than Cup on Sunday. And you saw a lot more lead changes, like I said. For the amount of laps that were run, there's definitely. This one had 14 lead changes over 200 laps, and then the Cup had 13 over 267 plus overtime. So this one was a lot more competitive in terms of the amount of laps that they ran here. And then Chandler Smith ran up front and led the most laps. So it's clear he's got a good start to the year, but he just needs to be able to hold on a little bit longer to be able to get the win. And I think he'll be up front a bunch later on this year. And of course the 16 car has been pretty competitive in the Xfinity Series the last couple of years with Colleague Racing. So definitely think there's going to be more good results than bad in terms of being able to close for wins for Chandler Smith later on this year. And then his teammate this weekend, of course, Kyle Busch, surprisingly wasn't that dominant. We thought that Kyle Busch would be up there, and there was a couple times where off of restarts he was up near the lead, and I thought he would be able to drive up there and run away with it, but that did not turn out to be the case. And he started out 11th. His teammate Chandler Smith had the pole, so Kyle Busch didn't quite have the pace that he needed this weekend. And, I think we both picked Kyle Busch to win, no, you picked him, or you picked Custer and I picked Busch, but I think we both could agree that we thought that Kyle Busch was likely to probably win this weekend in Xfinity, especially at his home track, first start back into the Xfinity series. So, he didn't do as well as what I thought he would, but shows how tough it is to win in this series, and you really have to be on your game in terms of both your team, your car, and you're the driver. So yeah, it's a bit surprising, but he's still finished in fourth in this one. Josh Berry, got a top five and had a spin in the middle of the race, before the end of stage one. So that was definitely a surprise there, and that he spun out like that. But I think it was just a case of hard racing and getting loose coming off of turn 4 and spinning out. But he was able to recover for top 5 finish there. So good recovery there. And then last week's winner, John Hunter Nemechek, solid result. Led for 45 laps and gets 6th place. So this race was definitely a lot more competitive, I think, than Cup. But yeah, Austin Hill. It's kind of a classic finish if you think about it. I mean, he bided his time there and was patient, and then Chandler Smith, used up his car, I think, and he was able to have it handling there, and his car was a little bit more hooked up to the racetrack than Chandler Smith there at the end, and he was able to make the pass to coming to the white flag to win the race. So, yeah, good win for Austin Hill this weekend in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, and he gives himself an early leg up in terms of the points. He currently is up by 21 on Justin Allgaier, 24 on John Hunter, who is the only other one that's won this year. Chandler Smith is now 4th in points. Well, he is 4th. He didn't lose a spot or gain or anything. Riley Herbst 5th. Sam Mayer 6th. Cole Custer 7th. Josh Berry is listed twice on their rundown, so good job by NASCAR that. Joe Graff Jr. Been driving the 19 the last couple of weeks, so he is currently 9th. Parker Kligerman 10th, Sammy Smith 11th, and Jeb Burton is on the bump spot. You got the likes of behind him, Jeb Burton is up by 6 points on Ryan Sieg and Daniel Hemrick. Hemrick, I think, got in right on the bump last year and wasn't really a factor. He's hurt right now, so Sieg, of course, smaller team. Brett Moffitt's running with Stuart Haas support. Sheldon Creed, Brandon Jones. So there's going to be some movement there, I would say. The likes of Joe Graff Jr. and Jeb Burton at a minimum probably are going to be removed, but who else could move is to be determined. But yeah, though that's the biggest gainer from last week is there's two would be Hemrick did gain 7 spots along with Sheldon Creed with their results, and then Sammy Smith gained 4. So we'll see what happens this week at Phoenix for them for the Xfinity Series, since they will be there. And we will finish up with the trucks, which saw Kyle Busch win the Victoria's Voice Foundation 200 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, so a home win for the all-time winningest driver in the series. And also truck owner, first time winning in a Chevy since his Billy Ballou days. And Kyle Busch wins over Zane Smith, Ben Rhodes, Corey Heim, and Ty Majeski, so 3 Fords in the top 5. Christian Eckes, Carson Hocevar, Chase Birdie, Grant Enfinger, and Jake Garcia. I think that's his series debut too, so credit to him making his series debut and getting a top 10 finish. The McAnally team getting 2 trucks in the top 10. I mean, you also have Kyle Busch gets 2 of his trucks in the top 10. The stage winners were Zane Smith and Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar was the only other driver to lead double-digit laps. You had, Zane Smith there. Rhodes, Enfinger, Kaz Gralla driving for Tricon Garage, whatever. And then Colby Howard. Is that Colby Howard? Or is that Daniel Dye? Yeah, I think it's Daniel Dye led laps, and then Nick Sanchez led laps but got in a wreck. Rajah Caruth had stage points in both stages, but then had issues late in the race. So Brett Holmes crashed. Even he started up front, 6th place, and wrecked. So brutal start to the season for him. The 46 truck and the 34 truck basically start and parked. Haley Deegan wrecks 59 laps into the race. So, well, more of the same no matter where she drives. And then John Hunter Nemechek had some sort of issue, vibration. It says vibration on the results sheet, but he didn't finish in his Tricon number 17. So yeah, Kyle Busch led the most laps, didn't win the stages, but he did what he had to do. He led the last, 22 laps of the race, or 23 laps of the race. And him and one of his proteges right now, Nick Sanchez, are swapping the lead early in the race. But then Zane Smith had the lead when it counted. Hocevar started showing his mettle in the second stage. Him and Ben Rhodes are swapping the lead. And Kyle Busch basically from lap 68 till the end, for the exception of the 5 laps that Daniel Dye led the race. I mean, I don't know where else to go with it other than, Kyle Busch. What else did you expect? I think we both picked him in the trucks. I don't know. I have to go and look, but that race, I knew it wasn't going to be watchable when Jamie Little was the lead announcer, and then I'm like, oh, here we go. And then on top of it, Kyle Busch is in it, so more than likely he's going to win too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think I had the race on at all. I think I was playing iRacing, so doing something better with my time than watching the truck race, I guess. But I think by the time I looked up to see who won, I turned it on and Kyle Busch was giving his winner's interview. So yeah, it was pretty much expected. Actually, I picked Ben Rhodes to win. See, I thought the opposite, I guess. I mean, you picked him to win the Truck Series, and I picked him to win Xfinity, and then you also picked him in Cup. But I thought, based on Xfinity, his experience there, that it'd be easier for him to win in Xfinity than in Truck. But I guess Truck, he won the race there. So yeah, I mean, statement win, honestly, for the organization. Not Kyle Busch, but him being able to win first time out as a new organization in terms of switching over from Toyota to Chevy. I mean, not surprising that he won, but they needed that as a group to prove that they still have what it takes to win after switching manufacturers and everything. So yeah, I mean, this was a good win for their team, and goes out and dominates to win the race and everything. So yeah, and I mean, not too much happened otherwise. I mean, obviously he led a bunch of laps. Hocevar led some laps too and picked up a playoff point for stage wins, so that could be important later on. Of course, Zane Smith also, but we kind of expect him to be able to get those type of results in the stages. But yeah, and Chase Purdy, of course, also had a good result, finishing in 8th. So yeah, I mean, this is a pretty standard race for Kyle Busch in his truck career now. He continues to win that series. I will say, I guess, a little bit, maybe not a little bit surprised, but with Ross Chastain, I thought maybe he might have done a little bit better as a Cup veteran racing in the truck series. But I guess it still matters with equipment. The Nice cars aren't quite as good as maybe some of the other cars in the series or truck in the series. So yeah, definitely Ross Chastain finishing 4 laps down in 24th, a little bit surprising for a Cup driver competing in trucks. So yeah, but otherwise, not much really else to talk about in this race. So yeah, I mean, Kyle Busch won at Las Vegas in the Truck Series. What do you expect?
Exactly, and it kind of leads into our points. Zane Smith, I mentioned, won a stage, so he got his first stage win of the year. He won Daytona, but didn't win stages there. Ty Majeski is only 2 points behind him in second. Christian Eckes is third. He is tied with Matt Crafton. Ben Rhodes is fifth, so that's the three competitive ThorSport trucks. Grant Enfinger is sixth, tied with Ben Rhodes. Carson Osavar is 7th, Matt DiBurrito 8th, Tanner Gray 9th, and Chase Purdy at the moment would be the cutoff spot. There's a definite delineation points-wise. Corey Heim is 3 points behind Purdy. Ankrum is tied with him. And then Colby Howard is 13 points out of the cutoff and 9th place, essentially. So those guys have run every race this year. There are other drivers that have run, but there's a huge points gap. Nick Sanchez has definitely had a lot of issues so far in both races. So is Rajah Caruth and Daniel Dye. So they've got some ground to make up for sure. Jake Garcia, as I mentioned, made his Truck Series debut and goes and gets a top 10 finish. So now he's 17th in points. I'm not sure if there's a waiver deal or if he just goes out there and wins, he'll be in. Something to look at considering the McAnally trucks are very competitive this year. I'm trying to look through some of these other people that are around, and most of them kind of suck. So Haley Deegan right now is 31st in points. So that's not a great look for her. She's behind, how many guys who have driven every race this year outside of the 16, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 20, or 22 drivers she's behind that have run, or no, that's wrong. 15. Yeah, 22 drivers, actually, I was right. 22 drivers that have run both races so far this year. She's 23rd amongst the drivers that have run every race. Brett Holmes, though, she's at least ahead of Brett Holmes because he's had horrendous start to the year. My God, that is bad. You're behind guys that only drove Daytona. And, they'll get to wait to go to Atlanta a couple weeks' time in another super speedway type event. That'll be on Saturday, the 18th. That'll be a doubleheader, I believe, with the Xfinity Series. So there goes that. All right. Through all of NASCAR stuff, so that means it is time for the GSP Roundup. Plenty to go over there. And we will start with Formula 2 and Formula 3. Formula 2 ran, and the winners in the sprint race was Ralph Boschung, and in the feature race, Teo Pocher. For the sprint race, trying to go and get the results, calendar and results. So I go through all that. That's not what I was looking for. Just clicks on the driver. That's not... all right, so standings. Teo Pocher, of course, I mentioned, won the feature. So he and got points in the sprint. He leads Boschung by 4 points. Zane Maloney had a podium finish in the feature, getting his first in his first weekend in Formula 2. Kush Maini, the Indian driver, gets is fourth with 14 points. Richard Vashore is in fifth. Iwasa sixth. Dennis Hauger seventh. Artur Leclerc eighth. Victor Martins ninth, and Isaac Hadjar in 10th. Jehan Daruvula, Enzo Fittipaldi, and Juan Manuel Correa got the last point there, so credit to him, the part American driver there. 2 Indian drivers, two American drivers. Jack Crawford is in this series, and Brad Benavides. So 3 Americans, 2 Indian drivers. Pretty cool. They'll be around next race, of course, will be Saudi. Constructors Championship right now. Campos leads ART by 4 points, and then there's a huge gap to Rodin, Carlin, Dams, Van Amersfoort, and MP Motorsports. In Formula 3, the standings sees Bortoleto, the winner of the feature after not getting any points in the sprint. Goth, Beganovic, Marti, who won the sprint race, Gregoire Saucy, Franco Colapinto, Browning, Caio Collet, Paul Aaron, Kalen Frederick, the American driver, Meany, then Fornaroli, Sebastian Montoya, Johnny Edgar, all the point scorers for the race weekend there at Sakir. So the points are pretty tight. They're only doing a sprint and a feature race this year, so a bit of a change. They used to run 3 races back a few years ago, so a little amendment there. Trident has a huge lead to start the year over Prema. ART is third. Campos is tied with High Tech for fifth. So that's Formula 2 and Formula 3. World Superbikes at Mandalika. World Superbike Championship. Yep. WS World SBK. Up Raskat Lioku kickstarts his title challenge. So there you go. The results of the races this weekend. Alvaro Bautista wins both races, regular races. Toprak Raskat Lioku won the Super Pole race and finished second in both regular races. Andrea Locatelli finished third in race 1. Javi Vieje finished third in race 2, and Alex Locatelli and Alex Lowe's finished second and third in the Super Pole race. Points now. I'm trying to go and look at the calendar. We're not gonna see them for a while. They'll be coming back in the middle of April at Assen for the Dutch Superbike, or the Grand Prix of the Netherlands or whatever Superbike race. Alvaro Bautista leads by 37 points over Toprak Raskat Lioku. Andrea Locatelli, his teammate, is in third. Axel Bassani and Michael Ruben Rinaldi on Ducati's fourth and fifth. Johnny Ray is in sixth. Let's see, Vieje now moves up to seventh. Petrucci, Iker Lackawanna, Argater is 10th. Garrett Gerloff currently 16th in points. And, so 16th in points there. I'm trying to see here. So 6 races. So nothing there. I thought there'd be more details. Oh well. So there'll be a while before we see the World Superbikes. We'll see MotoGP, Moto2, and Moto3 here in a few weeks' time, though. Let's go into Indy next, which was at St. Petersburg for their season opener. It saw Daniel Frost win the race, Indy Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, over Nolan Siegel, Jacob Abel, Christian Rasmussen, Hunter McElray, Ernie Francis Jr., Josh Green, Reese Gold, Rasmus Lind, and Kiffin Simpson. Jamie Chadwick driving her first race in this series, driving for Andretti Autosport in a DHL car, finished 13th. I'm trying to look through. We had Jagger Jones had issues, wrecked in lap 13. Unfortunate for him. The standings then, obviously Frost goes and has a 10-point lead, led late. Abel dominated the race, but in the end, Frost and Siegel were able to get by and finish ahead of him. Qualifying saw Foster, Abel, Rasmussen, the top 3. Frost started 7th, so even more credit to him to go and move up from 7th to get in position to win their race too. So we'll see them next at Baba, which will be nearly 2 months from now. So whatever, we'll forget about them. And Ernie Francis Jr. started 17th and he moved all the way up into the points. So credit to him on that. Then, result, race info. So they'll be running there. They should be running the Freedom 100, but that's beside the point. They said they had streaming on Peacock. I didn't know they did have streaming on Peacock. They were saying that they didn't have it, but I guess they do. Daytona Supercross saw what do you call Eli Tomac join Mr. the King as a 7-time winner of an event at Daytona. Of course, Mr. the King won 7 Daytona 500s, and Eli Tomac has won 7 Daytona Supercrosses, so that's a really insane stat considering how hard it is to race at Daytona and the weather conditions and the whole bit. Eli Tomac finished ahead of Cooper Webb and Chase Sexton, his 2 title rivals this year. He leads Cooper Webb by 5 points and Chase Sexton by 10. Jason Anderson and Ken Roczen round out the top 5. You have Aaron Plessinger, Barsha, Christian Craig, Joey Savacci, and Colt Nichols rounding out the top 10 in the, and that's what is it, 2, 3, 4, fifth win of the year for Eli Tomac. Cooper Webb has two wins and then three second place finishes, hence the consistency is keeping him up there. Chase Sexton has 1 win, 3 seconds, and 2/3. Now that's why that battle is going to go the whole way this season, and it's good to see. It's just they're now next week they'll be racing at Indianapolis in Lucas Oil Stadium. Last week, of course, was the NFL Scouting Combine, so now they're empty. They're emptied out for that, so now they'll have the Supercross at Indianapolis. Then you'll have Detroit, Seattle, and then a week off, I think, for Easter there before they go to State Farm Stadium in Glendale. So plenty to look at. Detroit's a classic round along with Indianapolis here on this championship. So Hunter Lawrence wins the 250 Daytona Supercross over Max Anstey, and Hayden Deegan, a.k.a. Danger Boy Deegan, on a Yamaha. So he wins, it's the top 3. Jordan Smith, Jeremy Martin, Chance Hymas, Chris Bloss. Trying to see, Nate Thrasher wrecked a couple of times. He was up there, started first. Didn't have the finish to show for it, though. In 250 East competition, Hunter Lawrence leads by 14 points over Anstey, 25 over Deegan. Jeremy Martin's a further 3 points back, tied with Jordan Smith. Nate Thrasher 29 points back. So there's a nice little battle from 3rd through 6th. Hymas is 7th. Chris Bloss, Tom Vial, and Michael Moseman are round out your top 10. I mean, brothers Hunter and Jet Lawrence lead the both sides of the 250 Supercross championships, West and East. So that could be something, history being made there. Both of them are able to come through and get those 250 Supercross titles. The NHRA will be debuting for the first. They'll be debuting and they'll run the Gator Nationals this year to open their season, going and changing up their the way that the schedule is. I guess condensing it in a way. So that'll be nice. That'll be a nice little change up there. Trying to see the event. Yeah, so event info for the Amalie Motor Oil Gator Nationals. You got event info, lodging, blah, blah, blah. Competitors, there you go. So we'll get into, I'll start with Top Alcohol Dragster for personal bias reasons, because one, Anthony Wayne Stewart will be driving his Mobil 1 TSR car for the McPhillips family team. We'll see how many cars there are in this race. 21 cars entered, of course, there are 16 spots, so you have to go and beat 5 drivers in qualifying. Megan Smith, who beat him at Las Vegas, the Rhonda Hartman's Smith's daughter, so that's a classic. It's old chassis too, no less. Dan Mercier, a longtime alcohol competitor. Corey McCulloch there. Daniel Dietrich, and has a Chrysler alcohol engine. Look at that. Karen Stalba from New Jersey. Jackie Frick from Flemington. Wow, that's cool. Didn't know that. Jasmine Salinas. So there's a bunch of ladies in this category, and 2 of them are from New Jersey. And then there's Thomas Fox Jr., another New Jersey guy. So another New Jersey person. So that's cool to look at. You got Brantford, Ontario. Sarah Allen from Jacksonville. Port Charlotte, Florida for Cody Crone, sponsored by Lucas Oil. All right, so we'll go to Pro Mod, which sees 19 cars. Trying to see if there's anything that isn't a Chevy. That'll be a challenge. Yeah, there is. Stan Shelton in a Ford Mustang. Or 21 Ford, I'm assuming it's a Mustang. Everything else is a Chevy. There's Paul Dagripont, that's a name. He has a Chevy Camaro powered by a Chrysler 521. Okay, that's something. That's one you do. All right. So then go into Pro Stock Motorcycle. This will be, they didn't write how many competitors for whatever reason. That'll be 20. Yeah, 20 for 16. Matt Smith, of course, the defending champion, entered on a Suzuki. Joey Gladstone, the runner-up last year. Also on a Suzuki, Angie Smith finished third in points. She's on a Buell still. Steve Johnson, former winner of the Gator Nationals, closest opportunity he's ever had last year to win a championship. Coming back, the veteran Eddie Krawick will lead the Vance and Hines team. Then you have Mark Ingwerson in a Buell, along with Ryan Ayler, Gianna Evaristo, so Gianna Salinas, Chris Bostic, Gage Herrera taking over for Angel Sampay on the Vance and Hines bikes, Richard Gadsden, Chip Ellis running for MSR on a Buell, Hector Rana Jr. back running this year with Getrix, I guess. Michael Phillips, and then I guess his nephew, or I'm assuming his nephew, Malcolm Phillips Jr. They'll be running the J&A Services Reed Motorsports Suzukis. And then I'm trying to see John Hall, Suzuki Kelly Klontz. Yeah, so that's the field. I kind of have to assume that Matt Smith will be the favorite, but his wife has won at Gainesville before, and Krawick is one you can't ever count out. We'll see if some of the Buells can stand up to the Suzuki contingent. In Pro Stock Car, I didn't list how many cars again, so 20 cars there. Eric Enders goes and trying to defend her championship for Elite Motorsports. Her teammates are Aaron Stanfield, Troy Coughlin. Greg Anderson now runs his team, and they have a 4-car effort with Anderson, Dallas Glenn, and I think Matt Hartford. I don't know, but definitely Dallas Glenn. Camry Caruso joins their effort this year, and so that's that there. I forget who the other driver was. Or Kyle Koretsky. There you go. He's hidden over there. Kyle Koretsky is the other one. So yeah, they're a 4-car operation this year. Elite Motorsports will also run Jerry Tucker in a Chevy. Chris McGahey and his son Mason continue to race this year. Larry Morgan, the ageless wonder, out there racing. Alan Przinski, a Jersey guy, the only Dodge out there, still trying to fight the uphill battle. Curious as to what Camry Caruso can do now that she's connected with a big team. Can she go and make that step forward and possibly not only get that first win, but contend for a championship this year? Something to look at. But the rivalry, of course, Enders and Anderson has gone on for many years. We'll see if that continues, even with some of the changes that have taken place over this off season. Funny car class has 16 cars, so nobody's going to fail to qualify. So Capps, of course, Ron Capps, the defending champion in his own Napa Auto Parts Toyota. Robert Height driving for, of course, his former father-in-law in the AAA car. They've got Cornwell Tools and Flavor Pack. Bob Tasca III. I've been his Motorcraft Quickly and Ford. John Force, who's I don't know how old he is, but he's a psychopath, but he's one of the greatest race car drivers ever. Cruz Pentragon driving a Dodge body, Snap-on Tools car. DeJoria back, third team. Tim Wilkerson joining forces. I forget who. The Skag Power Equipment. He's joining forces with Tony Schumacher. Yeah, that's the Skag Power Equipment. Matt Hagan driving for TSR in the Dodge SRT Direct Connection green. They're doing green black this year. Alex Laughlin is actually driving for I guess, Big Jim Dunn this year. So that'll be something to see how that all works out. Paul Lee, Terry Haddock, Dave Richards, some of the Haddock and Richards, who are the smaller organizations. Of course, John Smith. That's the Rhonda Hartman's husband and the dad of the girl that beat Tony Stewart. Blake Alexander driving for Jim Head again this year. J.R. Todd driving for Connie Coletta. So there's the field in Funny Car. Going to be interesting to see that battle between those three caps, Height and Tasca. Can Cruz Pentragon come back after many years from his last title and go and win another one? And Brittany Force, of course, is the top fuel champion coming back, the Monster Energy Flavor Pack dragster. And you had Antron Brown as a runner-up last year. Her Force's teammate Austin Prock finished third. Both of them live in Pittsburgh, Indiana. Interesting. Justin Ashley finished fourth in points in the Phillips Connect dragster. Steve Torrance, an actual off year for him relative to winning all them championships. Josh Hart, Sean Langdon, Doug Coletta, 9 guys there. So 18 for 16. Mike Salinas is there on the bottom. Scott Palmer, O'Patrony, I don't know who the hell he is. Doug Foley, there's Leah Pruitt in the Dodge SRT Direct Connection dragster. Spencer Massey driving this weekend's race. Tony Schumacher, as I mentioned, in the Funny Car deal. Todd Payton's team running Keith Mert. Clay Milliken running the Parts Plus dragster with Rick Ware Racing. Lovely. So that'll be something. Can Brittany Force go and repeat, get another championship there to start or get a win in the to start the 2023 season. They'll be running this weekend at the Gator Nationals, and then 2 weeks they'll go to Arizona, and then the following week they'll run the Lucas Oil Winter Nationals before taking a couple weeks off between that race and then Vegas 4-wide, and then another couple of weeks for the Charlotte 4-wide. Definitely talk about NHRA as the season goes on. Okay, let's keep it moving. The Extreme E Desert E Prix will be coming up this weekend. Let's see, great. That's from Desert E Prix, or Desert X Prix, I mean. My mistake there. That doesn't work. So Desert X Prix. This year they'll be running 2 races every round. So it's in Saudi, of course, Naum, Saudi Arabia. So they'll be running 2 races this coming weekend there. And then the next race will be a couple months from now, the Hydro X Prix, then in May, then Island X Prix in July, a to-be-determined or announced race in September, and then the Copper X Prix in December to end the season. The teams and drivers, there have been a bunch of changes in the Extreme E. Right now, this year, Apt Cooper XC team will run Clara Anderson and Nasser Al-Attiyah. That wasn't their team last year, or at least that it was changed from Clara Anderson. She was with Excite Energy Racing, and then now she's moved over in Nasser Al-Attiyah. He's been there, I guess, for last year at least. Former multi-time winner of the Dakar Rally. Iconia Science XE team sees Layla Sands and Matthias Ekstrom race because Carlos Sainz was injured at the Dakar Rally. Andretti, I don't even know what that is. It was Genesis Andretti United Extreme E, but Alta, I'm not even going to try. Katie Munnings and Timmy Hansen continue their partnership. Carl Cox Motorsports, he's a English or whatever investor dude. Christine GZ and Timo Scheider are the drivers. Jensen Button XC gets 2 new drivers in Heda Hosas and Heikki Kovalainen, the former Formula One driver. Neo McLaren Extreme keeps their driver lineup of Emma Gilmore and Tanner Faust. GMC Hummer EV Chip Ganassi Racing returns RJ Anderson. It was Kyle LeDuc for a while, for a couple of years there, but RJ Anderson replaced him late last year, and he's now the male driver, and Amanda Sorensen, an American driver, will be coming along and running as the driver instead of Sarah Price. Then in Rosberg X Racing, the champions of the first season, Michaela Allen Kotolinski and Johan Kristofferson, the rallycross driver, are back. Veloce Racing will have Kevin Hansen and Molly Taylor. They've had changes over the years. X44 Racing, the defending world champions, they still have not announced their drivers. Wow, that's something. I think you'd want to have drivers considering how close you are to the race, the season starting. So that is convenient. I guess we'll find out who's racing for them by next week. Supercars will be running their opener, as I mentioned, at Newcastle. So that will be the Thrifty Newcastle 500, and then they'll run their next race will be at Melbourne as part of the Formula One Grand Prix weekend there. Drivers this year for the Supercars, Repco Supercars Championship. Running through here. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. Shane Van Gisbergen, the defending champion of the series, of course. In the number 97 Red Bull Ampol Racing Chevy Camaro. We'll go and move up to the numbers. Number 2 will be Nick Percat, Mobile One NTI Racing for Andretti United, Walkinshaw Andretti United. Todd Hazelwood for Cool Drive Racing, the number 3. Jack Smith, SCT Logistics, number 4 Chevy Camaro for Brad Jones Racing. James Courtney in the Snowy River Caravans, number 5 Ford for Tickford Racing. Cam Waters, a Monster Energy Ford Mustang for Tickford. Andre Heimgardner, R&J Battery Chevy for Brad Jones Racing. Coca-Cola Racing drivers are Will Brown in the 9 and Brody Kostecki in the 99. Anton De Pasquale comes back to race the Shell V-Power Racing, number 11 for Dick Johnson Racing. I think I said that Nick Percat was the driver of for Andretti, Walkinshaw Andretti United. I think I mixed him up with, oh no, it is Walkinshaw Andretti United. Okay. So, Middies, oh no, I didn't. Okay. Bryce Fullwood driving the Middies Electrical number 14 Chevy Camaro. Fullwood was, he's driving for Brad Jones Racing there. Will Davison back in the iconic number 17 for Shell V-Power Racing and Dick Johnson. Mark Winterbottom, former champion of the series, in the number 18 DeWalt Chevy Camaro. Matt Payne in the Penrite Racing number 19 for, as I said, Penrite Racing, Ford, and then Hino Racing number 20 Chevrolet for Scott Pye. Tim Slade in the Newlawn Racing number 23 Camaro. Chaz Mostert, the Mobile One Optus Racing Ford Mustang for Walkinshaw Andretti United. David Reynolds driving for Penrite Racing Ford number 26. James Golding, Newlawn Racing number 31. I think I saw that here earlier, but then you have Jack LeBrock, Truck Assist Racing Camaro number 34. Cameron Hill will be his teammate this year in the number 35 Truck Assist car. Thomas Randall in the number 55 Castrol Racing Ford Mustang. Declan Frazier in the Trady Racing number 56 Ford. Both of those, of course, were Tickford Racing. Brock Feeney, the rookie sensation, jumping in to replace Jamie Whincup last year. Now is in second year for Red Bull Ampol number 88 Chevy Camaro, and Macaulay Jones and the number 96 Pizza Hut Racing Chevrolet Camaro. So that's the field. Shane Van Gisbergen's dominated over recent years. So we will see how that goes in the Supercars Championship. And it's the first race, of course, of Gen 3. The Camaro is new. The Mustang, they've tried to do a little balance of performance because Ford's been giving up a lot. We'll see how that all works out. We'll start with the Xfinity Series, Josh, the previews for the United Reynolds 200. There's 39 for 38, so only one car is going to miss the show. Changes are Weatherman's back in the 02. JD cars are the same. Blaine Perkins running full seasons. Kyle Busch will run again in the 10 car for Colleague. Ryan Truex will run the number 19 for Joe Gibbs. Connor Mozak will run for Sam Hunt in the 24. And let's see who else. Joe Graff is back in the number 38 for RSS. And then, Ellis, Jeffrey, they're back. Leland Honeyman is driving the 45 for Alpha Prime. CJ McLaughlin trying to wreck again this weekend in the 53. Brian Weber, whoever he is, trying to qualify the 66. Dawson Cram, former guest of the show, will be trying to get the 74 into the race. They've had a hard time this year making shows. Anthony Alfredo, he's full-time. Garrett Smithley, because the 99 for BJ McLeod was withdrawn, he'll be driving for DGM. And then Kyle Sieg will be driving the 28. It's a track, the easy way to look at it, it's a Joe Gibbs Racing kind of track in the Xfinity Series. Keebler won the last race there. I'm not remembering who won in the spring last year, but it feels like a benefit for either Gibbs or Junior Motorsports, but who knows? I don't know. What are your thoughts on this weekend's race at Phoenix, at one of the more crappier racetracks that they race at these days?
I think you pretty much nailed it right there with the teams that we expect to be competitive here. And looking back, the last decade of racing at this racetrack since they repaved and this configuration, a lot of the winners have come from Joe Gibbs. Of course, a lot of those winners were Kyle Busch, so he's certainly a possibility in this series. There's a handful of Penske winners, but of course Penske isn't really racing in Xfinity anymore, so we don't have to count them out. And then the other, team that has been good over the last couple of years has been the Junior Motorsports teams, particularly Justin Allgaier has had a good record. Gragson, of course, won here last year in the spring. The fall race is a little bit different because of the championships, so there's some differences there, but patterns do emerge there, and a lot of those, the last couple of years it's been different, but, the fall race has always been kind of dominated by the same teams as well, for the most part. It's going to be interesting, this race this weekend. I think Xfinity is better than Cup at this track as well. I'm going to go with the 9 car winning again this year, and Brandon Jones this time. I think they've had a good piece last year. Of course, Noah won that race back in the spring and then finished second in the fall to Ty Gibbs. So I think Brandon Jones, and he's won here before as well, so it's not totally out of possibilities. He won in 2020, the last Xfinity race before the COVID-19 pandemic started back in 2020. So, I think I can see Brandon Jones coming out here winning in Xfinity this weekend, in the 9 car, first win for him in Junior Motorsports, and first win for that team since Noah Gragson left. So we'll pick Brandon Jones to win this weekend here in Xfinity. Wild card this weekend, go with Parker Kligerman is a wild card in this race. He's still feeling it out, and everything with his, signing to the 48 car this year. He's been pretty good driver over the years, but just hasn't had a whole lot to show for it. So I'll go with Parker, as Dale Jr. says, as the wild card this weekend.
Parker, he gets they use your wild card pick there. Parker Kligerman wild card. For me, I mean, as it stands, what is it? Kyle Busch is the only Cup driver in this race, at least unofficially, because who knows? Maybe Barry will be in the Cup race too. I'm gonna go out there a little bit. I'm gonna say Sammy Smith gets his first career Xfinity win at Phoenix, going with the whole Gibbs trend. They have Mendering as experience, of course, with Buckshot Jones winning there. Sammy Smith seems to be a relatively steady hand. He has experience at the track in ARCA, K&N, whatever. So I don't think that would be out of the realm. I'm going to pick a wild card selection. I'm going to go look outside. That would be really bad. That would be asking a lot. That's definitely asking a lot. If I go there, I guess I'll go with Sheldon Creed, because he still hasn't won yet in the Xfinity Series. He is a winner at Phoenix before to win his Truck Series championship. Now his teammate has won 2 of the first 3 races of the season. Will he feel the pressure? Will he press and get himself into trouble? Or will he go and rise to the occasion and get himself into the mix for an Xfinity Series championship? We will see this coming weekend, though. Cup Series event this weekend, the United Reynolds 500K at Phoenix, 36 for 30, 36 for 40, so no issues there. Some changes. Austin Cindric will be running the Menards scheme this weekend. Chastain with Kubota. Austin Dillon running BetMGM. Kevin Harvick and Hunt Brothers Pizza Ford. Brad Keselowski running Castrol Edge. Enviro Extreme for Corey LaJoie. Cheddar's on Kyle Busch. Whoever's driving the 9 will have Kelly Blue Book on the side. Go Bowling will be on the 10 because they're actually having a PBA event, kind of a special event there this weekend. Denny Hamlin will be running Shingrix, whatever the hell that is. Dent Wizard for Ryan Blaney. No sponsor for Todd Gilliland, who's making his first of 5 starts for Rick Ware. Action Industries on the 16 for Allmendinger. Socios on the 17 for Buescher. And those are all kind of the same. McDonald's this weekend for Bubba. Valvoline for Will Byron. Leaf Filter on the 31. Zane Smith makes his second start of the year. He'll be driving the WellCare number 38. Ryan Preece running the race sponsor on his car. Personal sponsor of his too. Gagson and Jones running the same as they run last week. Tyler Reddick with the Beast Unleashed. Goofy scheme they had there. Ricky Stenhouse, Richard Thomas's English Muffins. Alex Bowman will be running the Allied Best Friend scheme, the home track for him. Let's see here. Ty Dillon in the Muto Chevrolet. BJ McLeod Superior Logistics Services. And then Daniel Suarez Freeway Insurance on the 99 for Trackhouse Racing. We don't know who's going to be in the 9 car. Last year, of course, saw Joey Logano get the victory at Phoenix in the playoff. In the spring, though, one Chase Briscoe got his first career Cup Series victory, the 200th winner in the NASCAR Cup Series. And it was a pretty big day for me. I lost my shit. I was on Twitter or on whatever messenger, I think both with you and with Joe Passero, and losing my crap. And then I got to celebrate the next day with a victory lap there. So that was pretty big. That was fun. I don't have those same kind of vibes going into this weekend, though. Josh, you get first dibs here on, you went first on the Xfinity?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll get, okay. I'll go first here for the Cup Series. I mean, I think it would be. It's not really out of the realm to see that. I mean, he's the all-time top tens and all that stuff. But then there's, he's there. I mean, Logano's been fast to start this season. Has had chances in 2 of the 3 races, regular races. Of course, he had the fastest car in 1 lap, and it's a track position race, very short, not a lot of pit stops, long green flag runs. So there's if you don't hit it off the truck, it could be a real problem. I'm gonna go with Christopher Bell. He got into the Final 4 last year and had that experience going into this race a few months later. I think that's something that will definitely help him and drive him forward. Christopher Bell is my choice for the race at Phoenix. My wild card selection, so trying to go outside of the top 18 in points, and that would be, there's a couple of them there that are interesting. I mean, is it really possible to go and call the guy who won this race last year and a guy who got a top 5 finish in the finale or close, whatever, 6th place finish, wild card, but he's 34th in points? I think at the end of the day, I'm going to do, or 32nd in points, I'm sorry. Tyler Reddick's behind him. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the homer pick. The wild card selection for me is the defending race winner, Chase Briscoe. Trying to manifest it. 2 USAC midget guys, Chris Bell and Chase Briscoe. What say you, Josh?
Well, honestly, I was thinking about making the same pick for wild card as my wild card that you just picked with Briscoe there. And I was like, yeah, technically it's a wild card if we go by what you were saying is wild card. And, he won last year and has had pretty good results in Xfinity and Cup here at Phoenix. But, I mean, given the way that they've been performing so far this year, I guess it makes sense. But overall, though, so Ford has not been very good so far to start the year. Outside of Daytona, they were kind of off outside of Kevin Harvick and Logano to a degree at Fontana, and then at Las Vegas, Harvick was kind of the guy there too, and Logano was up there for a bit, but then kind of faded after he won the pole, and then ended up spinning out, later in the race. So I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney here to win at Phoenix. Last year he led a bunch of laps, and then in the spring race, and then the fall he led a good amount of laps there as well. So I still think Ford is good at this racetrack in its current form. I think Ford has an opportunity here with Penske and Stewart-Haas. Throw in Wood Brothers as well with that, and the other Fords and front row. I think they have an opportunity here to kind of recover from the last couple of races that they ran here in the series. So they've been weak so far, kind of been off, outside of 2 drivers. So I'd go with Blaney there to win, and I think the wild card, go with Zane Smith, of course, won in the Truck Series, Championship here last year, and has been very good so far in his truck career. And so I think he has a good opportunity here in Cup Series, running the 38 car this week instead of Todd Gilliland to go out and win, or not win. That would be incredible, but to get a good result first race in the Cup Series. So I'll go with Zane Smith as my wild card here this weekend here at Phoenix Raceway.
Yeah, that would be, he's finished, in 3 years in a truck, he's finished second, and first at Phoenix. And then, and then you look at the Clash, which is probably as close to what they've run racetrack-wise, and those cars from front row were very fast at the Clash. So that it bodes well, I would think. Michael McDowell's a Phoenix native, so he'd probably want to put one on there. It's not the same momentum as they had with Blake Harris last year, but they're there, so anything can happen in that sense. Okay, so that is all the regular racing stuff. So now it's time for sim racing, which means the floor is yours, Josh, for all things iRacing and other platforms where we see sims.
Yeah, of course. And this past week ran a little bit of Road America this past week. I was on the schedule pretty heavily for Cup, the Legends Cup. So the 87 car ran at Road America, and let me tell you, that was an experience running there. Very, very much of a struggle there. I tried to run like I would the Cup car at Road America or the Xfinity car, and really had to be very sensitive with the brakes because as the race went on, there was a lot of brake fade that occurred in that one, and just the amount of finesse that you had to have in the 87 car. My mistake was trying to run qualifying laps. I ended up finishing, I think, at fourth or third in that one, and there wasn't a whole lot of people participating anyways. But it was just a kind of a survival in that one, and just trying to run around that racetrack in the 87 car. It's kind of like Watkins Glen in a way, running that, but you really have to brake way earlier than what you think you need to with the 87 car, of course, with the brakes that car had compared to what Cup and Xfinity have today and everything, and then just make sure you don't have any wheel spin or wheel hop in that car, downshifting and into like turn 5, turn 1, etc. That was an important part there, and then managing the tires throughout that, especially off corner exit. You want to get a good bite off the corner to get a good exit, and you have to really manage the rear tires, or else things start to slip and slide, and that happened a lot. But I think I still finished in like third or fourth, but I think I was way behind in terms of time. I think Legend Series at Road America, I finished in. I was running third for most of it, then I fell back to fifth, and running like a minute and 14 seconds behind. So I think second was like 37 seconds. So it was very much race of survival in that one for 87 cars at Road America, and then ran GT4 at Road America a couple times on Saturday and Sunday night, which I definitely liked running that in the BMW M4, which I was very, very satisfied with how I was able to run. That one ran pretty aggressive both times, or 3 times that I ran in that series, and really like running Road America in general, but also just the GT4 BMW car was really nice to run in, especially under braking acceleration. You can really get back to the throttle really quickly on corner exit around Road America, and make up a lot of time on the long straights that it has when you're battling another car, and get a good draft down the front straight down into turn 1, or down into turn 5, or into turn 13 at Kettle Bottoms at that track. So definitely good there. First lap is always a disaster, though, especially if you're in the back of the pack, which I was. I skipped qualifying, try to make it interesting for myself at least, and try to run make up time throughout the field. And turn 5, the slowest corner on the track, and going downhill into 90-degree left-hander. A lot of guys behind you try to dive bomb that corner, and then they miss the corner, and you're braking. So you're braking and you're trying to take in your normal line. Then you see guys going way down in the inside, and then just completely blow by you in the corner and completely miss it and go into the gravel. It's always kind of entertaining to see that. And you have to be careful because you might get blindsided depending on where you're at in that part of the turn. So you get hit there, or you barely miss it, and like as you're making your wide entry into the corner, you kind of see a car just like go by in the inside and pass you briefly, and then they go into the gravel trap, into that paved air runoff area. So it's definitely a part of the track you had to watch out for on the first lap, and then after that it's just about managing and not overdriving the corner and everything. So Yeah, I mean, it was a good, solid couple runs there. Racing Road America was always one of my favorite tracks in iRacing and stuff. And I didn't really run. I mean, the NASCAR, the IndyCar is really that much. I just kind of just based on what time I was playing and the series that was available and what track I wanted to run. Saw Road America. I was like, yeah, run Road America there. So that's how it was. But yeah, this week on iRacing is week 12 or week 13, which is always like that free week where nothing counts, and I think it's in between updates onto the service. So the Mazda Cup running at Oulton Park for week 13. The GT3 Ferrari is running at Sebring. Porsche running at Magny Cours. Figure 8 running at Irwindale. And then I think you have Sebring. They have a big class, so that includes eight car class, including the Ferrari GT3, Ford GT, McLaren MP4, Audi, BMW GT3, etc., Mercedes GT3. So that's I guess they call it the Sebring Sunrise Series. I guess running at sunrise at Sebring at 6:45 a.m. So a lot of visibility. It's dark and the sun's coming back up, caused a lot of glare effect in the game, so that could be interesting there. BMW Sim Cup also running at Sebring as well. That's the new BMW hybrid V8 that debuted this year at the 24 Hours of Rolex and Daytona, and then the M4 GT3. So that should be interesting there as well. And then the iRacing Formula One series, which they call Formula A Grand Prix Tour, running the Mercedes W13 from last year, running at VIR. So that should be an interesting one there too. I don't have that car, but I have the track, so I might try to match and try to get that one. But it's definitely an interesting series to run in for sure with the Formula One cars, and running at a track like VIR. That's definitely a challenge for even for today's Formula One cars for sure. Oval side of things, switch over to the Oval series list. I think there's not a whole lot of week 13 stuff on the Oval side, but let me open up not a whole lot of week 13. I think only thing week 13 wise is street stocks at Langley Speedway this week, and then iRacing Class B Open Series at Phoenix and Class C Open Series at Phoenix, and then also the iRacing Series Class C, which is the I think like third distance or half distance cup race, so 156 laps at Phoenix. So that's the one with I think at least 3 to 4 pit stops in Phoenix with the cup cars. That's running all this weekend. So there's that. I think, because it's between updates and iRacing. I think right now, news-wise, on iRacing, they are updating the game this week, and I think one of the updates, I think they're updating AI this week on iRacing. So yeah, there hasn't been really too much any like news updates. I think it's just like routine stuff that they're bug fixes and stuff like that for the next season of iRacing. So I think it's now into season 2, which will go from March all the way until I think June or July, at the end of June or July. So we'll see. I don't have the exact dates, but that's usually how long the season lasts in iRacing throughout the year. And then I think I saw the schedule for IndyCar on theirs, which is interesting because they're having to replace some of the real tracks with some of the discontinued tracks that the series no longer runs on. And I think on that, if I can pull it up, the Open Series, the Class B Open Series for IndyCars, IR18, they start out at Suzuka, then they'll go to New Hampshire, Road Atlanta, Auto Club Oval, Barcelona, so Catalunya, and then Sebring, the Chicago Street Circuit, Homestead on the Oval, Monza, the Grand Prix Circuit, Milwaukee, Interlagos, and then Spa. So that could be interesting there, some of these tracks, especially Spa, Chicago Street Course as well. Road Atlanta could be interesting there. Suzuka kind of compare that to F1, how the IndyCars would race on that one. And then the fixed series, you have Michigan, New Hampshire, Las Vegas, Kansas, Richmond, which was supposed to be on schedule back in 2020, Kentucky, Pocono, Homestead Oval, Twin Ring Motegi on the Oval, Milwaukee, Chicagoland, and then fixed on the Auto Club Speedway Oval at the end of May. So I guess the week of the Indianapolis 500, they'll be running at Auto Club. So kind of a US 500 in a way with more tire wear. So that might be interesting, but it's a 60-lap event though. So no full distance, of course. No iRacing Indy 500 because this is the time of the year, or getting to the time of the year where we're going to be running the Indy 500 in real life. Not too far away there. So we'll see how that ends up. And then I think there might be some private leagues running their own Indy 500. And if I decide to run any of that, I'll let you know if I do. Just have to see what schedule looks like for me personally, since it's a little bit up in the air there, and we don't. The iRacing Indy 500 in the past, I think they would announce those dates like at the beginning of the year, whereas some of these privately run ones might be a little bit different timing wise. So I'll have to see if I have time for that, and hopefully I do. But yeah, I mean, of course, iRacing as always when I stream be on Twitch TV UCLR2 where /UCLR2 where I go and make my racing streams. Of course, we'll be streaming there whenever I hop on live. Don't know how much I'll run this week or this weekend. Kind of be busy doing some family stuff this weekend, so we'll see if I'm able to get on or not. But I'll be on there whenever I do stream, which I'll go live, which either by notification or post link, Twitter or direct message or otherwise. So that's where I stream all my stuff. Of course, still have Daytona streams up there and everything, and then all my other highlights that I have up there, including the Indy 500 win from last year, which could be the last time ever that they run Indy at Indianapolis, unless the news or whatever with Motorsport Games, if they end up folding or end up not producing the game, then that would void the contract, and then maybe iRacing and IndyCar could negotiate or something like that. So we'll see. But yeah, that's where I'll stream on IndyCar or iRacing or any other series I decide to run on iRacing on my Twitch stream. And then of course Twitter, JP Huffine, where I have all my opinions and takes and everything on motorsports and sports in general. Of course, the past weekend, talking about the racing this past weekend here at Las Vegas, and we'll talk about Phoenix on my Twitter and everything. And of course, talked about a little bit of UFC this past weekend. Big fight with John Bones Jones taking the win over Gane in the UFC 285, which I lost actually. I bet against John Bones Jones, and I shouldn't have done that because clearly he's still the GOAT there. But that was what I was doing on Saturday night. But it's definitely a good fight there. But yeah, of course, always all my stuff on there and all my opinions on JP Huffine at Twitter. And of course, YouTube page, Grip Shit Podcast on YouTube. Go on there and see all our videos and all our stuff, which we'll post here later in the week. And go on there and like, comment, subscribe on all our videos and listen to it there if you don't want to listen on Apple or any other place. And see, I guess you can see Philip's shirt that says Philip Matthew is my spirit animal. So yeah, definitely a good shirt, which I guess Phil, you should give the link or the place to go purchase, but it's definitely a funny shirt. If you want to support him and us and Grid Talk, I guess, then go on there and buy that shirt.
Yeah, there's plenty of good merch it's on redbubble.com. You'll search for the Grid Talk page on there, and there's plenty of cool merch for George Housen, of course, a former guest on our show. He hosted yesterday during the recap for Bahrain that I was a part of that show. So I was wearing that shirt yesterday. I was a part of I'm a member of the George Housen fan club, which of course I am. He's a friend of mine. He's a good dude. And he's a responsible dad and loves his son and posts cool pictures of him. So that's always great. Also a part of the Ruby Price fan club. So I have that shirt. And then, of course, I had to get my merch because I mean, it's just hilarious. It's awesome. Have to thank, I'm forgetting. I mean, of course I forget. It always works out that I forget everything when I'm about to go and talk about it. But Aiden, I think, or not Aiden, it's over here. You know what? I can go and look it up over here. It's easier. I can bring it up on Slack. It's Jared, who's part of the group that runs the F1 or Grid Talk podcast, and he's the one who came up with the idea for that. So credit to him. And I've already bought some merch. We're definitely thinking about doing that for our end here on the GSP, which you can find basically on any podcasting platform you choose. We post our shows through Podbean, of course. You can follow me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can follow us at GripStripPod on Twitter. Of course, and then Josh mentioned the YouTube GripStrip podcast page, which is the video feed of our show, posted later in the week. Hopefully I'll get this one out earlier than I have last few weeks on the audio side. And we will be back next week for episode 160 of the GripStrip podcast, which will be about Phoenix. We will review the Cup and Xfinity, plenty of roundup stuff, which will also include the 12 hours of Sebring. Then you'll have Formula One back in Saudi, amongst other racing series that will be going on. So we'll definitely talk about them here. If it goes fast, we talk about it here on the GripStrip podcast. So for Josh, as always, thanks for all your contributions and all the and also taking care of the back end of this deal, and just for being a good bro. For Josh and for everybody who listens and supports us, thank you all, and let other people know about the GSP. We're trying to grow this deal one day at a time, one show at a time. So we thank you all who do listen and have been listening here recently. A lot more downloads in recent weeks, so it's nice to have. So for Josh, it's Phil. Take care. We'll see you next week for episode 160 of the GripStrip podcast. Enjoy the Motorsports week and stay safe out there.